Hey everybody, welcome back to the MarketingBox podcast. For today's Entrepreneur Spotlight, we have Stacey Paretti Rase, and I'll go ahead and let her tell you guys a little bit about herself.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me here. This studio is beautiful.
Oh yeah, thank you.
I'm a native of St. Tammany. Well, I was born in New Orleans, but moved over here in the early 70s. So I've seen St. Tammany Parish change a lot, and I've had a long career of doing many different things in the community here on the North Shore. My most recent venture is in the short-term rental business. I own and operate 5 listings, but 2 properties that in Covington that are what most people would call Airbnb, but it's so much more than that. I also rent on Vrbo, but most of my guests come from direct bookings because of just word of mouth in the community. And I've been doing that. This is my 5th year. I own the LaCroix in Downtown Covington. It's right across the street from the English Tea Room, so it's smack dab in the middle of Downtown Covington. And then I own 18 acres, just 5 miles north of that in Covington, called Sleepy Lagoon. And we have 2 homes out there for short-term rental, and 1 is for small events.
Wow.
So yeah, that's kind of my my entrepreneurial side. Before that, I was a freelance writer and a coach. I was a high school teacher. I've worn a few hats, but absolutely love our area and always love getting in front of people where I can talk up our community and what a great place it is.
Well, you sound like you're a big contributor. So I've always been fascinated with the Airbnb stuff on the economics of how it works, because I've seen some things just recently that Airbnb, people that have really gone in hard, in certain parts of the country, maybe are in a little bit of a pickle right now.
Airbnb bust, they're saying
is
right
that what,
now. A lot of that is it depends on your market and depends on how you run your business. There are a lot of course, fly-by-night operators that just kind of throw things on Airbnb and take the photos off their iPhone and just kind of see what happens. That is not what I ever wanted to do. I run mine very professionally, and my spaces are more like a boutique hotel with incredibly good amenities.
Wow.
It's one I love talking up the Southern Hotel because they're just 2 blocks from the LaCroix, and they do a great job, obviously, in what they do as a boutique hotel, but they have only so many rooms, and I have a great relationship with them. They will refer people to me when they don't have space, and I just provide a different experience for guests because in my home they'll have their own chef's kitchen. They've got laundry room. They've got a full den. We've got
really
a breakfast room with a bar.
Yeah.
So it's just a different experience for families to be able to stay together and be able to walk around downtown Covington and not have to be in separate rooms. It's more of a vacation rental home experience, but in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of markets that are Airbnb specifically, that the company, the numbers are down as far as occupancy and rates because it's a little oversaturated right now. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes in our industry that I know you see some of it in the news, but I see it every day because I Google it.
Like the fees, the exorbitant fees.
And like you see what's going on in New Orleans and the regulations coming down because...
And even here in Old Mandeville.
Here in Old Mandeville and in Covington, we're regulated and we pay, an annual licensing fee. You can only own 1 if you're in the city, in historic Covington. So as much as I'd like to scale and have more, I have real estate agents call me all the time, Stacey, this would be a perfect short-term rental. I'm like, well, I have the 1. I can't license another.
And I think here in Old Mandeville, I think they maybe have five total licenses.
And when you look at those here, and they're mostly along the lakefront, as you would think they would be, and they're beautiful, and they are run so well, very professionally. I refer a lot of people to them and vice
Della
versa.
Blue and the one down.
Yes.
So
yes.
whenever my CTO comes in town, that's where
Yep.
he stays. Is up because
Well, if it's ever booked, call me.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And he likes it because he's like
can
it's
walk.
a walk. It's walking.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to rely on people to drive him. He doesn't have to rent a car, and he loves just
sure.
being over here.
For sure.
Yeah. So. What made you get into that? Because I know you have a history as a writer. When we were talking, you were a Tiger girl. Then you went and you were a writer. What was your kind of career? How did you get to this, and like, how did you figure out? Okay, I think I'd really love to do this. Is it because your love of people and interacting with people and meeting new people?
I love all that. Yes. First of all, I was a golden girl because I'm so old. There weren't Tiger girls.
A golden girl.
There.
That's right.
Yes. However, love both teams. So awesome. Go Tigers. So I raised 4 kids, and that was my number one job. I had 4 kids in 6 years, and so it was a full-time job. And I love that part of my life. And excuse me, that's when I was doing my writing. I started out I started with the Times-Picayune. I wrote a weekly column, and that was just kind of strange. I didn't get my degree. I got my degree in psychology, and I was going to go to law school, and then I got married, and within like 40 days, found out I was pregnant with my first. So I put law school on the back burner, and then 6 months old, my first child, 6 months old, I was pregnant with my next. I was like, okay, so. Never went to law school, but always loved reading and writing. And I saw something in the Times-Picayune looking for a community news writer, a columnist. I was like, I could do that from home. And so next thing I know, this was like when the internet first started, like the dial-up, and I'd be nursing
Early 2000s?
This was 97, 98,
okay.
yeah. And I'd be nursing a baby and interviewing the mayor on the telephone. And so I'm doing this and, got the phone like crook. I've even bought one of those things to where I didn't have to do this for the phone.
Yeah, I remember those things, yeah.
So that I could take my notes. And that's how I started in journalism, and moved from there to being a reporter for the Times-Picayune. From there, I got involved with magazines, became a regular writer for Inside Northside, and then they asked me to be their editor. Did that for about a decade, and this was all while my kids were in school. So great jobs that I could leave.
You were figuring out how to hustle.
I figured it out. Yeah, I figured it out, and I could work in the office till 2:30, and then be in car line by 3. Mm-hmm. So that was a really busy time in my life, and the best time of my life. So I thought.
Right.
And you live and learn and figure out life has so much more that you didn't even know could be possible. So when our youngest was heading off to LSU, and this was pandemic, it was 2020, and I was like, actually it was 2019, sorry. But I knew it was looming. She was going to be leaving. And I'm like, okay, what is my life's work? I had also been coaching at that point for about 20 years. I coached dance teams and cheerleading, and absolutely love that. I was a teacher at Archbishop Hannon for a little while, teaching journalism.
That's where Faith's been homeschooled the last 2 years. She's going to Hannon this year.
There you go. Yeah. Awesome. Go Hawks.
Yeah.
So I've been around in this community for a long time, and some of our best friends who we have been, my husband and I have been real estate partners with for a long time, came to us and said, hey, we found this house that's for sale. It's commercial residential. It's in downtown Covington. Would y'all maybe want to go do a walkthrough and consider going in on it with us? It looks like a pretty good investment property. I'm like, okay. So it wasn't called the LaCroix. I forget what she called it back then, the downtown guest house, I think. And it was being operated as an Airbnb.
Okay.
And so it was being sold as that, like with the furniture and with the quote clients, and that's a story in and of itself. Like the future bookings, like we bought the future book of guests, right?
Okay.
And so we took a walk through and thought about it, and the next day our friends called and said, I just think it's going to be too much work. I think we're out. I was like, oh man. But I just felt the draw. I felt like I wanted this piece. And it kind of felt like this would be a really cool thing to do. All the kids are gone. Like, what, I had just given up coaching. So it just kind of worked out that way. My husband said, we don't really need a partner. Let's just go in. Let's see what we can do. And he had that faith in me, and I was like, all right, I'm ready to roll. So we did. We took a leap, and gosh, it's changed my life. Like it's been 5 years. I'm in my 5th year, and I never ever sought out being in the short-term rental industry. And now I'm writing books about it. I'm on podcasts about it. I am going to conferences all over. I'm not going to be able to go, but I was invited to a conference in Australia to speak this October. I'm like, what an honor. Like, it's just my story has resounded with a lot of people in the first book that I co-authored. And I specialize in hosting bridal parties, which is it's a very small niche in the short-term rental world because a lot of people shy away from that. And it's been my greatest joy, and it's also my bread and butter. I think I do that really well, and obviously now people pay me to teach them how to do that really well because it's just a niche that's not really out there that people know about. So so here I am. I'm 51 years old and have a whole new life that just 5 years ago I never would have seen myself here.
You know, this is the first time I've met you, but you know, you have such a positive spirit and perspective about you. Where did that come from? Tell me a little bit about where, you know, your family and stuff.
My mom. It's definitely my mom. And
have you always been like this, or have you learned to be like this as you've
Yeah, my mom raised, it's just me and my brother, and my dad too. We were just always raised to focus outward and to help other people, and look out for yourself, of course, but to be trusting and to lend a helping hand. My mom was really well loved and well known in our community. She's I'm gonna cry. She passed away the first year, actually, the week that we bought the LaCroix. She was in ICU and never left. So she never got to see this next stage in my life. She never even got to, she saw photos. And I said, do you think I'm crazy for thinking about buying this? She said, honey, if you don't, I will. She really saw something in it. And she was just such a positive person that, at her funeral, we had to hold it we had it at Christ Episcopal Church, and it was 3 hours of just thousands and thousands of people coming up and paying their respects. People my brother and I had never met. Wow. Telling us how she impacted their lives. Yeah. She was just a phenomenal woman. Mm-hmm. I could go on and on. That is actually a book I should write. The good that she put into this world. She's about to have a fire station named after her here.
Really?
She's got a day center for homeless families in her name here in Mandeville.
Wow.
She was just a force, and she was a coach as well. When I was growing up dancing, she was our dance team coach, and I think I just got that from her, wanting to see, especially for me, young people succeed and to give them that really good base of believing in themselves. And I think it spilled over in my life, obviously into coaching and cheer and dance, but now in this industry that I'm in, I'm also a coach. I guess I'm just a coach at heart. I've coached over 300 new hosts to get into the business, to start their short-term rentals and help them begin their journey. And, I'll be 11 p.m. at night, texting my new host, because it doesn't seem like a job to me. Exactly. It's my joy. Yeah. And
you're in your purpose.
Yeah, it is my purpose. Yeah, and whether that was, in a gym with cheer or, on a Zoom call with someone from Canada that I'm coaching that I may never meet, but I have friends from all over the world now because we formed connection. That's
amazing. Yeah, it goes to show you, too, how important it is, because my parents were the same way. Even though we were kind of poor, they told us we could accomplish anything we wanted to. It was all on us. The world is there for you to do what you can do. You just got to put the work in, and you gotta have no fear. And you sound like someone that's willing to just jump in with no fear about anything. Yeah. Does that come from your faith, or does that come from your back?
It comes from faith, but it also comes from an experience, my life's experience, that I've been super lucky. And I don't take that for granted. Mm-hmm. I believe that I've been set in certain places in my life for a reason, and I try to use that. I don't ever want to squander a moment, you know, that can be positive or can be helpful to someone else. To me, that's what it's all about. What else am I here for? You know, what am I going to leave behind that will hopefully be carried on? And it won't be my name. It doesn't matter that it's my name, but maybe it's my children teaching their children, and just being a positive force. And I really am. I love where I'm from. I love our community, and I guess I think there's two kinds of people in the world that, you know, some want to go off and do Greenpeace and do, you know, like, and that is awesome. It's like, that's not really where my soul is called. I love the right here. Like, what can I do right here?
Sure.
And I love community, and I love that I know at my business, at the LaCroix, that I know all of the business owners around me, and that we help each other. And it's this small little, you know, like, it's so fun.
You have this intimate network of people that you've connected with through your work that also have probably become friends of yours, I would imagine. I could want nothing more. It's really cool.
So
tell me about your kids. How old are they?
So they are 21 to 27.
Oh, wow.
And girl, boy, girl. And the oldest two are married. They got married within 5 months of each other.
Wow.
Thank you, kids. Yes. So that was a really crazy, fun time in our life. That was about 1.5 years ago. And then our son they both graduated from LSU. Our son just graduated from LSU, and our daughter is about to start her senior year at LSU.
Holy moly.
So yeah, we're big Tiger fans. We told them all, they went to 4 different high schools. We told them all, you can choose your high school, but you're going to LSU.
Where'd they go to high school?
They went to, respectively, they went to Hannon, SSA, St. Paul's, and Hannon.
Okay. You tested all of them.
Yes, we did. And it was good for them. And then once they got to LSU, believe it or not, they really didn't hang out much together in high school because the different groups and whatnot. But now at LSU, we bought a townhome it was just made sense with having so many of our kids living there, and they've lived together in different, you know, the first 2 lived together, and then the second and the third lived together. Now the youngest 2 live together. So they're best friends.
Real close-knit, huh?
Yeah, they're pretty cool kids.
Family vacations must be pretty cool.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, we're a family of 10 when you have the son-in-laws and the significant others. So when we travel,
grandkids?
It's no grandkids.
No grandkids. I got 5.
No. Okay.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
I'm like salivating, like waiting for the day, but not yet. So we got a dog last year, it's a puppy.
Yeah, we just got a dog a year ago too.
Yeah.
This is my first dog I've ever had, and I've fallen in love with this little guy, man.
Good for you.
He's super cute.
Such a cutie.
I mean, we've never lived without a dog. And
Really?
Yeah. So
I've never had a dog until now. I was talking to my brother yesterday, and he's getting ready to go. His son plays soccer in Portugal. He's in like the AAA of soccer. He's getting ready to make it into the big place, and he said, I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Portugal. And I said, hey, is Vanessa going with you, his wife? And he said, no, I don't think she's going to go because they have like a dog that's got dementia. And he said, I'm afraid to leave the dog and all. And I'm like, dude, I've never had a dog, but I'm thinking about it right now. If something would happen to my little tater, dude, I'd be distraught, dude. Like, I've become so attached with him.
Sometimes, how it happens.
Yeah, dude, it's because they're always like, it's like 50 first dates with him.
I bet.
Yeah, every day I come home, it's like a new day.
So cute.
Yeah.
Tater.
So you were telling me about this incredible kind of accomplishment that you had, that you were chosen out of all these, who might be hundreds or thousands of applicants, that you were chosen to write in this book called Hospitable Hosts. So tell me a little bit about this, because it sounds really fascinating.
Yes, thank you. I'm so proud of it, and I'm amazed that I was chosen. So obviously I had the background in writing, and then when I got into the short-term rental industry, I did miss writing a bit, but was very busy just running the business and whatnot. And I happened to be on, I think it was a Facebook group that was just hosts from all over the world that shared best practices. And I'm always trying to learn more about my industry and better my business and whatnot. And just was scrolling and happened across this post from a new publisher who said, hey, guys, just throwing this out there. If anybody would be interested in being a part of this book project I'm trying to put together, I want to find 40 hosts from all over the world with very different stories of how they are hospitable hosts, how they began in the business, great stories, the good, the bad, the ugly, all that kind of stuff. And I just stopped in the scroll and I was like, I could do that. Why not? And so I messaged her and we set up a Zoom interview. She was from over the pond. I thought the interview went well, but I had no idea who else, was interviewing or whatnot.
Sure.
I wasn't holding my breath.
Well, when you open things up to the world, there's a lot of competition.
That's why. Right. But guess what? You can only be told no.
That's right.
It's going to be no if you don't try.
That's
right. So I did it and put it out there in the universe. And sure enough, I got the call and she said, we'd like for you to be one of the 40. And I'm like, wow, cool, okay. When's my deadline? How many words? Whatever. And so I got on it, got on the project, and it wasn't until it really started rolling that, because she started like a private Facebook group for the 40 authors and the publisher as far as timelines and marketing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking at the people that were selected amongst me, and they were, I know these names don't mean much to you guys sitting in the studio, but to me, I dropped to the floor because the people, some of the people, some of the authors were like me, were, from little towns and just had their small host stories and very homegrown operators, but then others had millions of followers in the STR world and are speakers that get paid lots of money to go speak at conferences and teach the craft of hosting and teach the business side of things and real estate investing. I was floored. I'm like, wait, whoa. All of a sudden I got like imposter syndrome. Like, I don't know if my story is going to measure up to these guys. Like, they're the big guns in this industry. And what I found early on is that I work in the most amazing community in the world. Like, I cannot tell you how supportive these people who I thought they would never even like give me.
You're talking about other Airbnb
these
hosts?
Oh yeah,
Really?
and the ones that literally have millions of followers that do workshops and trainings that people pay tens of thousands of dollars to study under them, and now they're my buds. Like, they're my friends because I was lucky enough to be included in this book with them. And so I guess I've tried to change that mindset. Instead of being an imposter, I'm like, you know what? Mm-hmm. I may not have 1,000 doors. That's what they call it in our industry. Yep. I only have 5, but that's okay. What I'm doing with my 5 in my community is the best I can do. Yep. And I'll shout it from the rooftops. Like, of course. I don't want 1,000 doors. If I had 1,000 doors, would I be making millions? Yeah, but would I be able to know that it's Jeff that's checking in on Friday with his dog, Lucky, and that they're coming in town for a memorial service for their aunt? Like, that is what brings me joy. Mm-hmm. I know my guests. I am hands-on. For the first 2 years of my business, I did all the cleaning myself. I had no one. I had my handyman, shout out to Danny. I had my plumber, shout out to Jamie. Like, these are people that I couldn't live without. But I did everything myself. And I was grieving because I lost my mom, like I said, that first week when we went to active sale. And I didn't know what I was doing. I bought this short-term rental having no idea what it even meant. I'll never forget the night before I was going to host my first guest. I was up all night tossing and turning, like with anxiety dreams that, like, I can't do this. This is, just like not knowing what I didn't know. That's scary, right? And no matter what you do, if you've never done it before, it's what Glennon Doyle calls skited. I don't know if you know who Glennon Doyle is, my favorite podcaster. But she made up the word skited. It's being scared and excited at the same time. And oh my gosh, I look for opportunities in my life every day now to get skited. What can I do next to get me skited? Because that is where you really start to live. that's where you really go like, oh my gosh, I am way more than I give myself credit for. And it can be in tiny little ways.
So, Stacey, it's really crazy that you just brought up the word skited. I was just about to ask you. We've talked about this on our podcast before. When you look at these like business moguls, really successful entrepreneurs, they're all positive people that seek the opportunity. So I was going to ask you, what would your advice be? Because I feel like a lot of times people look at successful people and think, oh, you know, they're just lucky, but no, they saw the opportunity and jumped on it. So what would your advice be? To just jump on the opportunities and trust your gut, or what?
Yes, gut is a big thing for me. And it's a big part of the way that I always coached and the way now that I'm coaching adults in this industry. Always trust your gut. And if I follow that 9 times out of 10, actually 10 times out of 10, I have found along the way that steers me in the right direction. But also, don't compare yourself to anyone else, whether it be in your industry or, I look at Airbnb, for example, and Brian Chesky and the way that this all started. And
Amazing.
It was
with
such
the cereal boxes.
Yeah,
and all
it
that
was
stuff,
it was a blow-up mattress on his living room floor.
I remember.
And what a unique idea. And wow, look where we are now. So there are no dumb ideas. Nope. And if it turns out to be a flop, then okay, guess what? You learn something from that flop, and then you build on that and go a different direction. Like nothing, even a failure is going to push you in the next right direction, because you're not going to stay in the failure. You got to move on. So
we talk. Listen, one of the books that I've read that's had a profound impact on my life is Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill.
I haven't read that.
And he basically breaks it down to the key to life is activities. The people that put in the most work. Morality has nothing to do with success in the business world. Activity and action, and that's what has everything to do with it. So if you can't get paralyzed, because every new venture you've ever stepped into is scary, but you learn to embrace that, and that's when you know you're living. Like you said, I call it walking the plank. When you got 1 foot on the plank and 1 foot off, and dude, guess what? There's nobody catching you. Then that's what's exciting about life. Yes. So it's really, really cool that that's the way you look at things, and that's why you've been so successful. When you look back and you're telling your story, Golden Girls, you were a high achiever in school, the way that you dealt with your family, the way you figured out how to have a career and have the time that you wanted with your kids. And then once that was done, you were ready. You have constant activity. You're always moving forward. And that's really the key to life, dude, is when people get into doldrums and they can't figure out why. Well, you aren't putting in enough work, because if you put the work in, it's like you got to put something down in order to pick something up, right?
Amen. And I'm 51, and obviously most of my friends are at this age and are becoming empty nesters. I started really young. I got married at 22 and had my first at 23. So that was really young. So most of my close friends are, about 5-6 years behind me. And so they're just now having their kids or their last child leave the nest and going through, I guess, kind of where I was 5 years ago. And having these questions of like, what is my purpose? Okay, so I raised my kids and I may have worked part-time but what is my purpose now that they're gone? And they get stuck in that big question, and my only advice is just go do something.
Yeah.
And it might spark something. It might lead you in another direction, or it might teach you really don't like that at all. But so what? Move on and do something else. But don't sit there pondering over what can I be. I never thought I'd be sitting where I am today when I started this. I took a leap. Mm-hmm. And whatever you're going to do, just do it the best you can do. And that's what I did. I created this business and I kept it homegrown and I kept it special, and have spent every day. Oh my gosh, my family thinks I'm nuts because I'm just always listening to podcasts, always reading a book, always on YouTube, trying to figure out how to not scale my business, like buy more property, but scale it for the experience and what I can offer my guests and how I communicate with them. And so I'm a lifelong learner, And to me, that's really important. That gives me joy.
Yeah.
Without that every day in my life, like finding something new about the world or about myself or about my people, my industry. That's what gets me up every day.
It's amazing. I'm Shannon. I'm blown away because we talk about this stuff all
Yes.
the time,
Yeah.
and like what we found is the number one trait. Like when you really unpack all the great entrepreneurs and great business people, the thing that they all say was their number one characteristic is curiosity and an insatiable appetite to learn. So listening to you,
I can't stop.
There's no surprise to your success, and if you look back on all the things you've done, they've prepared you for where you are right now, how great you are with people, your writing skills, the fact that you became a host. And look, all of those things come together in this incredible accomplishment that you had, that you were able to, probably your editor skills and your writing skills had a big part in, because you were able to really, show the way that, write the way that not a lot of people can unless they were a professional. So yeah, I think it's just absolutely amazing. And it's such a great example to show that what we've been saying really does work. Look at how it's been applied to your life and the way that you've lived your life. And you are where you are because of the work that you've put in to get here. This is like no really surprise to you. It's like, maybe it's like surprising you get it, but when you look back, well, you know what?
Right.
I was prepared for this.
Well,
I was prepared for the moment.
The coaching side of things, coaching new hosts get into this industry, it's so cool because I will have a brand new host text me with a question that I can see myself 5 years ago asking that question.
Yes.
Because they just don't know what they don't know yet. Yeah. And I'm like, boom, I have an answer for that. But it came from experience and it came from studying. Like it came from curiosity. It came from wanting to be better and going to conferences and learning about this business and how to run it right. And so that is so neat to me to be able to sit back, and I kind of sometimes I even chuckle. I'm like, oh, honey, like, wow, you're in the weeds. You are just wow, like you have so far to go, but I'm going to help you get there.
Yes,
and that to me is a blessing because I didn't come by it easily. Like I've worked really hard to gain this knowledge and to be able to be on these speaking panels now at conferences and to be asked to go, be on podcasts to share my knowledge about what I do.
That's amazing.
And it's like
it's such a great.
It's fun. Like
you look like you're having a blast. You look like you're having a blast.
Now it's not all roses.
Right.
I got a lot of stories that have been the 3 a.m. calls of a tree fell on the Clico line and all the electricity's out and the sewer pump is off. You got to be. This is a 24/7 gig. It is not.
Well, it's hospitality.
It is
people are
hospitality.
paying you, and they expect what they expect.
That's right. That's right. You got to have your game face on. But I've also learned that I'm the type of host that I guess you get the sense that I'm a very, very personable, hospitable host. I get to know my guests, and because of that, my repeat guests percentage is off the charts. Like I have people that come and have stayed with me 10, 12, 15 times because we know each other. We've formed this, and some of them I've never even met in person, which is interesting. They may come in for business and they're in, they're out, and blah, blah, blah. But it's a special connection. And I love those repeat guests because when, there's a hurricane and the lights and the cable go out, they wait until the morning to call me because it's like, all right, like I know she's going to fix it. I'm not going to bother her right now.
Yes.
In that vein, one of my favorite, if you'll let me tell, one of my favorite stories.
Absolutely.
That
I'd like to hear a couple of the interesting ones.
I'm going to tell you a good one because this is one of my favorite and one that I included in the book. So I had this guest from California, a businessman. His name is Dean, and he worked for a solar company that brought him in. It was based here on the North Shore. And so he would come in like maybe once a month, and he'd come in normally like a Sunday to a Thursday. And he became a pretty regular guest. And at Sleepy Lagoon, it's also where I live. So my property is on the 18 acres, the house that I live, as well as the cottage that we rent out. And so Dean started staying at the LaCroix in downtown Covington. And then the next time he inquired it was booked on his date. So I said, but I do have this cottage. It's bigger than you need. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. But here, you're a great guest. I'll give it to you at a discount. Come and stay at Sleepy Lagoon. So then he falls in love with the cottage. And I noticed that Dean would get in very late on Sundays. Like he would fly in and he would check in at like 9 o'clock. And I said to Dean one day, I was like, hey, Dean, I'm making red beans. Do you like red beans? He's like, I don't know that I've ever even had red beans and rice. I was like, okay, well, I noticed you get in really late at night. I'm going to leave you some red beans and rice in the microwave. So when you get in, you have dinner. He's like, are you kidding? I'm like, no, I mean, I'm used to cooking for 6 and now all my kids are gone. I still don't know how to make red beans and rice for 2. Sure. Every time I make it, it's like, why did I make an army's pot of red beans and rice? So I brought red beans down to him, and he just loved it, lapped it up. So every time Dean came in, I made sure I had his red beans and rice waiting for him. Well, he became known in our family as Red Bean Dean. And all my families met him.
That is hysterical.
His wife, Kim, and their 2 precious girls have come in now. We're really good friends with them now.
Holy
they ended
moly.
up buying their own home because it just made more sense for him to buy real estate. And last week, I owe them a call. They're actually asking me to short-term rent their house for them when he's not there. So that part isn't in the book because that's a brand new development, but what an interesting world to be able to form a connection with somebody like that. And yeah, my kids love Red Bean Dean. He's the best.
That's
so
amazing.
Yeah.
How many stories did you write in there?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's mainly a story of how I got started and then some of the highlights because I think the story of how I began really says a lot about how I host today.
Okay.
So I think I alluded earlier in our conversation when we bought the home in downtown Covington, it was operating as an Airbnb, and the host told us that it was over 100. I think it was 150 average future bookings that she had on the books through Airbnb, and that it would be simple. All we would have to do is transfer those bookings into my name, and there you go. You have this built-in business, and then you build upon that.
No.
That's not the way it works.
No.
So the Airbnb model, it's not, or at least not in 2019, it was very much so not based on the property itself. It was based on the host.
Okay.
So the host has their profile and their star ratings and their guest reviews. That can't just be transferred to another. So
the people are buying the host, not the property.
Well, that was the expectation back then. It's changed a little now and evolved over the years, but back then you definitely could not do that. And so, as I said, I had to sign papers for my husband to go to the active sale and sign for me because I was at my mother's bedside and ICU and she was dying. We didn't know at that time that she would never make it out of there, but that's where I was. And so we purchased the home, and I know I've got guests coming, but I've got my mom here, and it was a really difficult time. And lo and behold, I found out in like 24 hours that, oh wait, that's not the way it works actually. She shut off her listing and everything went poof.
All the bookings disappeared.
I had to start from scratch. Luckily, what she had done was she had given me a printout of all of those guests, and it had their name, their booked dates, what they paid for the booking, and their phone number. I just had a phone number. 150. Okay.
So you started working the phones.
As I'm sitting there, like I think it was like 10 days sitting there by my mom's bedside. Excuse me. I called every single one of those guests. I think in the end, well, first of all, a lot of them thought I was scamming them, of course. Wow. They're like, wait, what? My booking is canceled and you're who? Like, and you want me to do what? Like, like trying to explain the process.
Sounds like an internet scam.
Well, it does. Yeah. It does. And I had, and meanwhile, I am like working off 2 hours of sleep and grieving. Like my mom's going through kidney failure and liver failure and all the things. And I think there were 2 that I did not convince to rebook.
Jeez.
And talk about know your guests before they ever get there, right?
Jeez, you had to convince them that you weren't a scam artist first.
Yeah, that I'm a real person and I do care about you. And I may not know anything about hosting yet, but I promise the house is going to look exactly the same as you wanted it, that you booked it. In fact, I'm going to upgrade these things. And so it took a lot of convincing, and it took a lot of heart, and it took a lot of really just one-on-one with my guests and trust. And that's where I started. And I mean, where do you go from there? You know, after that, I was like, okay, well, I think what people really want is that personal connection.
Sure.
It's not like checking into a hotel that you're not even going to remember what the lobby looked like, you know, a month from now. It is a real personal thing to go stay in someone's home that is curated for their stay with them in mind, and that communication is key. I have so many friends, the ones that have the hundreds and thousands of doors, that have VAs all over the world that do the communication for them. And it's a well-oiled machine.
Sure.
And kudos, that is one business model. That's just not me.
Sure.
I never sought that out, never wanted that.
And it's really not even possible here in this local market,
well, it's
right?
not. In St. Tammany, it's not. Yeah. There are markets I could go and do that, and people do that remotely, too. I mean, that's a big part of our industry. That's just not me.
So talk to me about that. So I know where we are in Old Mandeville, I think there's only 5 licenses. You're saying, you know, in Covington, you can only have 1 per person.
Yeah. In Covington, to be in downtown Covington, to have a short-term rental, you have to be in the historic district.
Okay.
And there is licensing every year, annually, and an inspection, fire inspection, and that kind of thing. And you do pay annual fees. Excuse me. And of course, the ones that are doing it legally, we're paying taxes, and we are a real asset, I believe, to our community. Mm-hmm. I think Mandeville, Covington, I think they've done a really good job in scaling it to where, there's enough to serve the purpose that is needed, but it's not. You know, I'm also really passionate about helping the homeless in our community. That's something that also stemmed from my mom. The day center that I told you about, it's called the Willie Paretti Family Promise Day Center. And I got to give Family Promise of St. Tammany a shout out. I'm on their board, and my mom passed away in the middle of, they were just about to break ground on the day center. She was instrumental in getting that started. And so they named it after her. And
where is it?
It's right between, it's almost past Fontainebleau State Park. Okay. So it's right in between Lacombe and Mandeville.
Okay.
It's a beautiful home where families. Well, I could come back and do a whole hour on Family Promise of St. Tammany, but our main goal and purpose is to help homeless families find stable housing, and we give them the tools to help themselves. It's not a handout. It's a program.
Yep.
And
that's wonderful.
It's amazing. So where was I going with this? That I'm on the board of that now, and I do their public relations for them, and it is obviously it's deep in my heart that there is affordable housing for those in our community that need it. So I see communities all over the country that's what the main problem is. I mean, the short-term rentals are popping up here, there, and everywhere, and a residential street will all of a sudden become all these rentals, and there's nowhere for people to rent or find affordable housing. So I get it. Like I'm in this industry, but my heart is also here. So it's a fine line. So I do think though St. Tammany has done a really good job, and the parish, they have licensing itself as well outside of the municipalities. So my property at Sleepy Lagoon is regulated by St. Tammany Parish.
What about if you're not in Old Mandeville or not historic Covington? Are there regulations about whether you can Airbnb? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So you have to be zoned.
Gotcha.
And luckily because we're a private property with 18 acres, so say in a subdivision, you really can't do that. The regulations are such in St. Tammany, you can't do that. Okay. And then there's also like your homeowners association will probably have some sort of regulation that it has to be at least a 30-day more rental, more of a mid to long-term situation, because, you know, if you're you're in a subdivision, you don't necessarily want the house next door to be different people every 6 days, 7 days, right?
Yeah.
And I get that. So the LaCroix is zoned commercial residential. We do have a resident that lives on one side of us, and then we have a jeweler that operates
that's a perfect
on the other
spot.
side.
It's
so,
a perfect spot.
Yeah, and my guess, it's great because they're right there. They can walk. We're 1 block from Lee Lane. We're 2 blocks from Columbia.
Perfect.
It is just,
There's so much to do over there.
Location.
So let me ask you this: if you're a young, how do you go about, if you're a young person wants to jump into something like this? Are there specific markets that are better, and how do they go about, doing the math to make sure that what they're doing is going to make sense? Like, what should be their? Walk me through that process.
Yeah, there are tons of experts out there that that have programs that you can. I mean, they have some are free trials, but I don't follow much of that only because that's not really my interest right now to find a new market and to scale outside of what I'm doing. But there are definite there are programs out there that will tell you
emerging markets,
yes,
hot markets.
And I do know. I mean, I followed enough to know, and at conferences enough to hear where we are. It's a really good opportunity because Gulf Shores, Alabama, is hot right now.
Really?
For vacation rental properties. The Fort Morgan area in
I wonder
Alabama. The beach and even going so far like Panama City Beach, Myrtle Beach is an upcoming market. Ohio. It's just, it kind of varies, and it just depends on if you want to live where you host or if you're willing to, do kind of a faraway hosting plan with a property manager that helps you. So I would suggest to anyone wanting to get new into the business, don't do as I did. Study it first.
Gotcha.
I got lucky.
Yeah.
I got really lucky. And Covington's just a really amazing place that I know enough about that I'm able to market it in a really heartfelt way.
Yep.
But I don't know. If I had tried to do this somewhere else where I really didn't know my area, I think, and I see hosts do it all the time. They jump in, but then they don't know what they're doing. They don't know their market. They don't know how to do their numbers. I got into a workshop program, like a mastermind, about a year into this, and I learned, and I'm still in it, and I absolutely love learning from them, like constantly. I would suggest choosing one like that. The one I love, it's called Thanks for Visiting.
Okay.
And they have a podcast. And I used to clean every day. I'd go to the LaCroix and clean and just listen to them and learn. And I wish I had found them sooner because I set up my calendar and my rates where it was like, okay, I'm going to do $118 a night, Sunday through Thursday, and then I'm going to do $138 on Friday and Saturday. And I'm thinking, that's a great business model. And lo and behold, there are some nights that I have to go as low as $100 on a Tuesday, but there's also Saturday nights that people are willing to pay $385 to stay the night because there's a festival going on or, so I have morphed hugely in that side of entrepreneurship. And I've never been a businesswoman, but I am now. I can call myself a businesswoman now. I look at my numbers every day. I have dynamic pricing software. There's so much more that goes into it.
That's what
rather than just opening your doors and like, here's
the price.
Yes, it seems so silly to me now, but now that I'm coaching new hosts, like I said, I see them doing it. I'm like, no, let's talk.
So what is an expectation of, obviously, as many nights but what typically, how many nights a year do you rent the place out on average?
Well, I'm open 365. But sometimes I do block it out for ourselves. Like I know people are so upset with me because I blocked out the whole LaCroix for the Olympia parade next year because my family wants to come stay downtown and, have a good time. Which is kind of a shame because that weekend is big money.
Yeah.
People want to book
time.
it.
Yes.
I have people that want to book it in 2025. So it's crazy. But yeah, I run about a 75 to 85% occupancy rate at the LaCroix.
That is amazing.
Yeah, a lot of one-nighters. A lot of hosts don't like to do one-nighters. I don't mind. Whatever you want to do.
Yep.
It's not often that I get more than a 7-day stay. I will get weekly stays, but I'm mostly like business travelers on the weekdays, or people coming in for medical procedures.
Well, it's such a sweet location.
Yeah,
dude.
I mean, there's
right
professionals. There's a vehicular specialist near us that people travel all over the country to come see, and they refer the LaCroix. I got in with Lakeview Hospital and St. Tammany Hospital, and Human Resources will call me if they have physicians that they're interviewing or need to come in, travel nurses. Like that, it's, Lovemore Yoga is right around the corner from us, right above Coffee Rainy.
The hot yoga and stuff, yeah.
Dom owns it,
Yes.
and Dom is an amazing guy, and he set up this workshop with students from all over the country who are coming in 5 separate weekends this fall, and they're all going to stay with me and be able to walk right around the corner to go take their workshop classes with Dom at Lovemore. So that's the kind of stuff that is just, I didn't even see was possible.
Yeah.
When I started this, I'm like, who wants
That's
to
what I was
come
wondering.
to Covington?
How much of your bookings do you think come just because you're on Airbnb, and how much it comes from your work? Because you've planted a lot of seeds in the local community to get referrals and all. But I would assume people think, hey, Airbnb, it's like, location. That's where all the eyeballs are. So if I just list it there, it's like being on Veterans Highway.
Yes.
You don't have to advertise. Is there advertising and marketing besides the grassroots stuff?
And that is something that I take pride in. I feel I do really well.
Okay.
Yes, of course, when I started, 95% of my guests came from Airbnb.
Yep.
A smaller percent from Verbo, because Verbo is more of a vacation property rental, people that are looking for a week at a time on the beach or a lake or what have you. So yeah, Airbnb has been my bread and butter, and I work for them now. I'm a Superhost ambassador and get paid for coaching people. I am a community leader for Airbnb. I lead a group of hosts in South Louisiana, all the way from the Mississippi state line to the Texas state line, and we've got hundreds of hosts that I organize.
You are doing it, man.
We're going to volunteer at the end of the month at the food bank. Anyway, that's a whole other thing that I'm into. Airbnb is amazing, and I love the company. I own stock in the company. I believe in the company. However, it's also a huge company that, at the end of the day, I'm a little guy. And
you're in the algorithm. You're in the
I am in the algorithm,
yeah.
And all it takes, and this is not just stories that are here. These are hosts that I know personally that are 5-star super hosts for years, and someone complains that that they had bed bugs or that they had a roach situation, and their listing is pulled overnight. And you got to be real careful. You've got to cultivate your own business and know your guests, and not expect that Airbnb is always going to be there, because it could be gone in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to tell you why.
That's right.
They don't. And I think what I do with them, I think, oh, am I special? Maybe not. Like, it's because I went to a conference last month for Airbnb. There are only 150 of us in North America, Canada, and the U.S. that were invited to this summit, and it was a weekend in Atlanta. They brought us all in, and it was a lot of learning, but a lot of rah-rah and getting us, and I love the business, but I was sitting across tables from hosts that said, I got pulled last year, and it took me months to get my listing back up and running. And I'm like, well, do you not know how to reach out to those hosts? They're like, well, no, it was all stored in Airbnb. I'm like, oh my gosh. So what I have done, and of course, once bitten, twice shy, because of the way I began in the business and having that rug pulled out from under me, and having to do it on my own and cultivate my own and figure out my own marketing. If you called me today and booked through Airbnb, messaged me today, Shannon, I would immediately, as soon as that booking comes through, I whip out my phone, I put in your name, I put Airbnb guest, because that's where you came from, the unit you stayed in, the city you're from. Sometimes I'll put in the memo, like if it's an anniversary visit or a wedding or what have you. And And that way, I've got them. If it's all gone tomorrow, I've got in my computer thousands of past guests that, and it also allows me to, if it could be 2 years later and the phone rings and I pick it up and I go, hey, Shannon, how have you been? And my guests are like, wait, what? Like, yeah. So it's just paying attention to the little things. I don't live with that fear because I know my people, I know my guests, and I also send them. This is a big deal for me. It's grassroots marketing. I call it, because I don't have some big CRM. When someone checks out, every single guest that has ever checked out in 5 years, the first thing I do is I text them if they were a great guest. Yeah. If they weren't, I leave them alone. Yes. I don't need that again.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll go back in my phone and I'll mark that out and go, no. And there have been a few of those, not many, but I reach out and I text them personally and I say, thank you so much. I really enjoyed having you. I say something personal to them and let them know, hey, in the future, you're more than welcome to book through Airbnb or Vrbo if that's your favorite method of booking. But do know you can book directly with me next time and every time. And you save, I save, because we're not paying Airbnb service fees. Sure. And I can also include you in discounts. Especially if I've got a last minute opening, I can reach out to those guests and let them know. And so it's just a different way of running things. I just don't. I do still rely on the big guns, but I don't, it's not my only method. And so over the years, like you asked, great question, I was about 95% OTAs, online travel agencies, and I would say about 70%, maybe 75% are now direct bookings. Wow. So they contact me first. How long? I can talk, man. Yeah, it's late. But one more thing I did want to mention, because this is my specialty, and what I would love for those on the North Shore to know about my businesses. I specialize in bridal party stays. Okay. And a lot of short-term rentals won't do that because it scares them. They think they're going to trash their place or what. I don't necessarily do bachelorette parties or any. That's not really what I do. I invite brides or grooms and their bridal party to get ready at my homes the day of their wedding. And so they'll come in,
take pictures,
be together, take pictures, hair and makeup, all the things.
I see them all the time at Della Blue.
Yeah, so they could go on the lakefront and take pictures. At Sleepy Lagoon, we've got fountains and bridges and walkways to take, your bridal party photos and do a first look out in the field. And so that is really my specialty, and I love doing that.
Ladies that are getting married?
Yes.
You hear that, huh?
And I was about to say, lucky for you, I have a bunch of friends that are about to get married, so, and they're all local to this area.
Yes. Look, all those thousands of kids that I coach, they're now like late 20s. Yeah, so prime.
It's time to cha-ching. Time to cash in on all this goodwill I gave you kids.
And how fun is that to be able to be a part of their most special day? And so that's a big part of what I do, and I love it.
That's awesome. Well, Stacey Rase, I got to tell you, this has been like you are a bundle of energy, and it's been what a great story. And congratulations on your success and the way you've approached things. I think you're a great example to young women, young entrepreneurs on. You just got to go get it, man. Yeah. You just got to jump and start running, get in the game, and then once you're in the game, you can see how the game's played and you can adjust, Yeah. But congratulations on your success. And
can I give you my
your
listeners my websites?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have two websites. The first is LaCroixCovington.com.
Okay. You might want to spell that.
Sure. It's LACROIX Covington.com. Okay. And then the other is SleepyLagoonLA.com, the LA for Louisiana. Okay. So, LaCroix Covington and Sleepy Lagoon LA.
Get yourself booking. Come down here and visit us.
I've got 2025 brides knocking on the door.
This is the kind of host I want right here. I want this kind of host.
Oh,